Imagine a man named David. He's a loving father, his world revolving around his young daughter, Lily. Then his life shatters. Divorce proceedings begin and a custody battle ensues.
David, like many fathers, enters the family court system believing in fairness and justice. He soon discovers a harsh reality. The courtroom, once a symbol of impartial judgment, transforms into an arena of accusations and legal maneuvering.
I found myself painted as an outsider. My role as a father diminished. Every visit, every phone call became a concession, not a right. The system meant to protect families seemed to be tearing mine apart.
David's story is not unique. It's a story repeated countless times across the UK. A silent epidemic of fathers alienated from their children. These are men stripped of their paternal bonds, their love for their children misconstrued as aggression, their desire for involvement labelled as interference. This is the devastating reality of the UK family court system, a system that instead of fostering loving relationships, often drives a wedge between fathers and their children. It's a system crying out for reform, a system that has lost sight of the fundamental truth. Children need both parents. The family court system, in principle, exists to serve the best interests of the child. But somewhere along the way, the pursuit of justice has become obscured, replaced by a system that often feels rigged against fathers. The very institution meant to uphold fairness has become a symbol of frustration and despair for many.
One of the most alarming aspects of this broken system is the lack of transparency. Family courts often operate under a veil of secrecy, shielding their proceedings from public scrutiny. This lack of accountability creates a breeding ground for inconsistencies and potential bias, leaving fathers feeling powerless and voiceless.
The financial burden of family court proceedings adds another layer of injustice. The exorbitant legal fees, often beyond the reach of the average father, create a system where access to justice becomes a luxury, not a right. This financial strain further marginalizes fathers, hindering their ability to fight for their rightful place in their children's lives.
The emotional toll on fathers ensnared in this system is immeasurable. The pain of separation from their children, compounded by the feeling of powerlessness against a seemingly indifferent system, leaves lasting scars. This isn't just about legal battles, it's about the fracturing of families and the erosion of a father's fundamental right to be a parent.
The UK's family court crisis didn't emerge in a vacuum. It's a troubling reflection of a system adopted from across the Atlantic, a system that has long been criticised for its failings. The United States, often touted as a beacon of freedom and justice, paradoxically houses a family court system rife with its own set of deep-rooted problems.
The UK, in a move that has since drawn significant criticism, modeled its own family court system after its American counterpart. This decision, made with the best of intentions, has inadvertently imported many of the flaws that plague the US system, creating a ripple effect of dysfunction that continues to this day.
The statistics paint a grim picture on both sides of the Atlantic. In the US, millions of children grow up without their fathers, a societal trend linked to increased poverty, lower educational attainment, and higher rates of incarceration. The UK, mirroring this trend, witnesses similar consequences, with children from fatherless homes facing a greater likelihood of social and economic struggles.
This shared crisis of fatherhood highlights the urgent need for a paradigm shift in how family courts operate. The current system, focused on adversarial litigation and often driven by financial incentives, has proven detrimental to the well-being of both fathers and children. A new approach is needed, one that prioritizes shared parenting, promotes amicable resolutions, and recognizes the irreplaceable value of a father's love and guidance in a child's life.
The UK's decision to model its family court system after the American model was rooted in the belief that it offered a progressive approach to family law. However, this well-intentioned move overlooked the fundamental differences between the two societies and the deeply ingrained flaws within the US system itself.
The American system, born out of a particular historical and cultural context, was heavily influenced by the feminist movement of the 1960s and 70s. While this movement brought about much-needed progress in gender equality, it also inadvertently contributed to a narrative that often pitted mothers against fathers in custody disputes.
This narrative, often grounded in the assumption that mothers were inherently better caregivers, gained traction within the US family court system. This bias, whether conscious or unconscious, manifested in a system that often favored mothers in custody battles, relegating fathers to the role of financial providers rather than active, involved parents.
When the UK adopted this model, it imported not only the structure, but also the underlying assumptions embedded within the system. The result was a system ill-equipped to deal with the complexities of modern families and the evolving roles of fathers in their children's lives.
One of the most damaging aspects of the American-influenced family court system is its tendency to frame divorce and custody disputes as high-conflict situations.
This framing, often perpetuated by legal professionals and court-appointed experts, creates an environment of distrust and animosity between parents, turning what could be a difficult but amicable separation into a full-blown legal battle.
The high-conflict narrative often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
When parents are encouraged to view each other as adversaries, communication breaks down, cooperation becomes impossible, and the legal process itself becomes the primary battleground for their pain and resentment.
This adversarial approach, while potentially lucrative for lawyers and court-appointed professionals, comes at a tremendous cost to families, particularly children caught in the crossfire.
Children thrive in environments where they feel loved and supported by both parents. The constant conflict and tension of a drawn-out custody battle can leave lasting emotional scars.
The UK, by adopting this adversarial model, has inadvertently created a system where conflict is not only expected but often encouraged.
This approach undermines the potential for amicable resolutions, fuels parental alienation, and ultimately harms the very children the system is designed to protect.
While the principles of fairness and justice should be the guiding lights of any court system, the reality is that financial incentives often cast a long shadow over family court proceedings.
The adversarial nature of the system, coupled with the often protracted legal battles, creates a lucrative industry where lawyers and court-appointed professionals profit from the breakdown of families.
In the US, the financial incentives are particularly stark.
The longer a custody battle drags on, the more billable hours lawyers accumulate, and the more money flows into the pockets of court-appointed psychologists, therapists, and guardians ad litem.
This creates a perverse incentive to prolong conflict rather than seek swift and amicable resolutions.
The UK system, while not as overtly profit-driven as its American counterpart, is not immune to these financial influences.
The high cost of legal representation, coupled with the often lengthy court proceedings, creates a significant financial burden for parents, often forcing them to make decisions based on their ability to pay rather than what's in the best interest of their children.
This intrusion of the profit motive into what should be a system dedicated to protecting families is deeply troubling.
When financial gain becomes a primary driver in custody disputes, the focus shifts away from the well-being of children and towards the bottom line.
This creates a system where justice is for sale, and where the most vulnerable members of society, children, often pay the highest price.
From the outset, the family court system often operates under the assumption that mothers are the primary caregivers, relegating fathers to the periphery of family life.
This deeply ingrained bias, whether conscious or unconscious, manifests in a system that often minimizes the importance of a father's role, treating them as secondary figures rather than equal partners in parenting.
This systemic devaluation of fatherhood can be seen in the language used within the court system, the attitudes of court personnel, and the often skewed recommendations of court-appointed experts.
Fathers, instead of being seen as integral to their children's well-being, are often portrayed as visitors or financial contributors, their emotional bonds with their children minimized or outright dismissed.
This erasure of fatherhood from the family narrative has far-reaching consequences.
It reinforces societal stereotypes that limit men's roles in child-rearing, depriving children of the unique love and guidance fathers provide.
It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where fathers, feeling marginalized and undervalued, become less likely to fight for custody or involvement in their children's lives.
The consequences of this systemic bias extend beyond individual families.
A society that devalues fatherhood is a society that undermines the foundation of strong families and healthy child development.
It's a societal blind spot that perpetuates a cycle of fatherlessness with its attendant social and economic costs impacting generations to come.
Financial weaponization, child support as a tool of control. While child support is a necessary component of ensuring the financial well-being of children after divorce, the system has become increasingly weaponized, used as a tool to control and punish fathers rather than simply support children's needs. This distortion of a well-intentioned policy has created a climate of fear and resentment, further undermining the potential for healthy co-parenting relationships. One of the most significant problems with the current child support system is its lack of transparency and accountability. Fathers are often required to pay exorbitant sums of money without a clear understanding of how those funds are being used to directly benefit their children. This lack of oversight creates opportunities for abuse, with some mothers using child support payments as a source of personal income rather than solely for the children's needs. The punitive nature of child support enforcement further exacerbates the problem. Fathers who fall behind on payments, often due to job loss, illness, or other unforeseen circumstances, face a draconian system that can include wage garnishment, driver's license suspension, and even imprisonment. This criminalization of fathers for financial hardship does little to support children and only serves to further alienate them from their fathers. This punitive approach ignores the reality that most fathers want to support their children financially and emotionally. By transforming child support from a system of support into a weapon of control, the family court system creates an environment of distrust and animosity that makes it increasingly difficult for fathers to remain active participants in their children's lives.
The parental alienation myth, silencing fathers' voices. When fathers attempt to raise concerns about their limited access to their children or express fears that their children are being turned against them, they are often met with accusations of parental alienation. This term, while having legitimate applications in some cases, has become a convenient catch-all phrase used to dismiss fathers' concerns and silence their voices within the family court system. The overuse and misuse of the parental alienation label have created a chilling effect on fathers' willingness to speak out about their experiences. Fathers who fear being labeled as alienators may hesitate to report legitimate concerns about the mother's behavior or parenting decisions, fearing that doing so will jeopardize their chances of obtaining custody or even visitation rights. This silencing of fathers' voices has devastating consequences for both fathers and their children. It allows genuine cases of parental alienation, where one parent actively undermines the other parent's relationship with the child, to go unchecked and unaddressed. It deprives children of the opportunity to have a healthy relationship with both parents, forcing them to choose sides in a conflict they didn't create. The family court system must move away from using parental alienation as a blanket term to dismiss fathers' concerns. Thorough investigations, conducted by qualified professionals trained to identify genuine cases of alienation, are essential to ensure that the label is used appropriately and that the best interests of the child are truly served.
Navigating a labyrinth of bias when assumptions trump evidence. For many fathers, the family court system feels like a labyrinth of bias, where preconceived notions about gender roles and parenting often take precedence over evidence and the best interests of the child. This deeply ingrained bias, whether conscious or unconscious, creates an uneven playing field where fathers are often presumed guilty until proven innocent. One of the most pervasive biases is the assumption that mothers are inherently more nurturing and better equipped to handle the day-to-day care of children. This stereotype, while outdated and demonstrably false, continues to influence custody decisions, often resulting in mothers being awarded primary custody even in cases where fathers are equally capable and committed parents. Another common bias is the belief that fathers are primarily financial providers, their emotional contributions to their children's lives viewed as secondary or even unnecessary. This narrow view of fatherhood ignores the vital role fathers play in their children's emotional, social, and intellectual development, reducing them to walking wallets rather than active, engaged parents. Overcoming these biases requires a fundamental shift in the way the family court system views fathers. Judges, lawyers, and court-appointed experts must be educated about the importance of father involvement and trained to recognize and address their own implicit biases. Only then can the system truly serve the best interests of children by creating a level playing field where both parents are given equal consideration and respect.
The pursuit of justice within the family court system comes at a steep price, one that many fathers simply cannot afford. The exorbitant costs associated with legal representation, court fees, and the often lengthy litigation process create a significant barrier to entry, effectively pricing many fathers out of the fight for their parental rights. This financial disparity creates a two-tiered system of justice, where wealthy fathers can afford to hire the best lawyers and prolong litigation, while less affluent fathers are often forced to represent themselves or accept unfavorable settlements, simply because they cannot afford to continue the fight.
While statistics can paint a stark picture of the negative outcomes associated with fatherlessness, they often fail to capture the profound emotional toll on children deprived of a consistent and loving relationship with their dads. The absence of a father figure leaves an unquantifiable void in a child's life, a void that can manifest in a myriad of ways, shaping their worldview, their sense of self, and their ability to form healthy relationships. When fathers are systematically excluded from their children's lives, children are denied not only these essential life lessons, but also the unconditional love and acceptance that a father figure provides. They may grow up feeling incomplete, as if a part of them is missing.
The negative impact of fatherlessness extends beyond the emotional realm, manifesting in tangible ways that can have lifelong consequences. Studies have consistently shown a strong correlation between father absence and lower educational attainment, with children from fatherless homes more likely to struggle in school, drop out before graduation, and face limited opportunities for higher education. Children growing up without this paternal influence may lack the motivation, support, and guidance needed to succeed academically.
For too long, the injustices of the family court system have been shrouded in silence, hidden behind closed doors and silenced by fear and stigma.
But the tide is turning. Across the UK, a growing movement of alienated parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens is rising up to challenge the status quo and demand change.
While raising awareness and amplifying the voices of alienated families is crucial, true change requires systemic reform.
One of the most pressing reforms is the introduction of legislation that promotes shared parenting as the default arrangement in custody cases.
Another crucial area for reform is child support. The fight for family court reform is not a battle that can be won by isolated individuals or even small groups working in isolation.
Building such a movement requires collaboration, communication, and a shared vision for the future of our families.
Educating the public about the realities of family court injustice is essential.
The time for change is now. Let our voices rise in unison, demanding justice, demanding reform, and demanding a future where families come first. This is not just a fight for fathers, it's a fight for families. It's a fight for the fundamental right of every child to have a loving and meaningful relationship with both parents. It's a fight to break the cycle of fatherlessness and create a society where families are valued, supported, and empowered to thrive. We must demand accountability from our elected officials, pushing for legislation that prioritizes shared parenting, ensures fairness in child support calculations, and brings transparency and oversight to a system shrouded in secrecy. We can no longer afford to remain silent. The time for complacency is over. The fight for family court reform demands the attention, the passion, and the unwavering commitment of each and every one of us. The human cost of this broken system is immeasurable. Fathers, stripped of their parental rights and alienated from their children, bear the weight of a system that often treats them as expendable. Children, caught in the crossfire of parental conflict and deprived of the love and guidance of both parents, face a future shadowed by the long-term consequences of fatherlessness. The family court system, designed to be a beacon of hope and fairness for families navigating the complexities of separation and divorce, has lost its way. Instead of prioritizing the best interests of children, it has become a system entangled in bias, driven by profit, and often more focused on assigning blame than on fostering healing and reconciliation. Subscribe now, like, comment, and share for more tips. Eddie J Experience, explore, engage, elevate.